Alright, hello, welcome to the channel. I'm Erin. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for clicking on this video. I'm so glad you're here. Stick around if you would like. Hit that subscribe button down below if you would like, because we're going to be getting into some really great videos, especially coming up 2022. And of course, I've got a whole bunch of great content here on my channel already, but here on my channel, I like to do three main topics: books, movies, and makeup. So if you're interested in any of those, definitely stick around, and I might separate those into two separate channels in the future, but for now, we're just having fun, and I'm just building it up here. So join the community, join the family, hit that subscribe button down below, and by the end of this video, if you enjoyed it, hit the like button, of course. Today we're getting into some more reading book content, some goals I have for 2022, some reading goals, obviously. And so I'm going to go through some of my ideals of what I want to do next year for reading. This year I, spoiler, surpassed my goals with reading the certain amount of books that I wanted, although I'll go into my different challenges I have for myself. And for next year, what I want to do, I will share with you guys here in this video. So let's go ahead and hop into the video. All right, you guys, so I have my reading goal written out here. I love a good old-fashioned notebook. I've written down some things that I want to do for the next year, so I'll share these out. Obviously, this is just some goals. This isn't super strict, but I definitely want to hit some of these points throughout the 2022 year as far as my reading goes. So for this year, in 2021 in particular, I set a goal of 25 books at the beginning of the year. I quickly surpassed that, and I ended up putting it higher every couple months when I surpassed my new goal. And in the end, I ended up keeping it at 50 books. Well, that was my last time I changed it, and I'll save that and tell you guys if I got it to 50. But I definitely surpassed my first goal of 25. So next year, I'm thinking of setting it at 45 to start, since I passed 25 so easily, and then I will see what I get from there. And I also had a couple of book bingos that I did. I'll show you guys how those turned out in a separate video, but on those book bingos, I had different categories that I had to read, and they were just kind of guidelines to help me get started and back into reading, since I had a couple years slump where I was not reading very much at all. And that really helped me out, because it definitely pushed me to start looking for different books, getting back into what I love doing, which is reading and just talking about books. And so for the next year, I've got some more guidelines for where I want to go, and also some series I want to start. So let's hop into my different categories here that are going to help me and guide me through 2022. So first off, I've since I've been watching a lot more booktube as well, which is kind of what also prompted me into getting back into reading, and also setting some goals for myself, and also to add some book content here on my channel. Of course, a couple booktubers influenced me. So since then, I've been really looking at a couple different booktubers that I really enjoy, and a lot of them are the ones I watch are heavily into like sci-fi and fantasy, which I love fantasy books. That's one of my favorite genres. And I didn't think I liked sci-fi, but now that I'm starting to go back and think about books that I've read, I've noticed I have read quite a bit of sci-fi. I just didn't think that they were sci-fi. I love a dystopian novel. That's considered sci-fi, and there's a lot of other books that I've read that are considered sci-fi as well that I never thought about, which now thinking about it, it's so clear. But like Ender's Game, for example, is one of my favorite books, and that's clearly sci-fi. I mean, I knew that one was sci-fi, but I just never really thought about it. And other dystopian novels that I really enjoy are also considered sci-fi. So now that I think about it, there are quite a few sci-fi books I love. And so for my first goal here, or my first point here, I want to finish some sci-fi and fantasy classics, as well as some horror classics. So I put these all kind of in the same category. I'll do horror separately. So let's go first into the sci-fi and fantasy that I want to either start a series of or start a book of in 2022. So my first one here is a fantasy one. I want to read Lord of the Rings. I know that there's like the Hobbit series and then there's Lord of the Rings. I don't know which one actually came first. I know the Hobbit series, I think, is set before the Lord of the Rings, but I don't know which book series came first, or I don't know. But I definitely do want to read Lord of the Rings. I also want to watch the movies next year because I've never seen them. And so I've tried to watch the first movie, but I was in high school and I just never finished it because I had to go to sleep. It was like a school night. So I want to read the book series next year. I know this one's a classic. It's like the foundation for a lot of fantasy that came after it. And I know that these books, I don't know if they're long. I think they're pretty long, but I definitely want to read, at least start the series next year. I don't know if I'll read the whole series or not in 2022, but I definitely want to read, at least start the Lord of the Rings series in 2022. That's been on my list. I actually checked out one of the books from the library before, but I was in a reading slump for several years. I don't even know why I even went to the library, because majority of the time the books went back unread, and this is one of those times. And that was during college. I don't even think I've read like past like the first chapter, so I definitely want to go back to that Lord of the Rings books, the Lord of the Rings series, and read some of those books. Again, I also want to go into, for fantasy, the Avalon series. I've heard about it. I don't know much about that one at all. I'll try to pop up pictures here, but it just seems, it looks interesting, so I want to try that one. And I know it's kind of like a classic. Excuse me. Another one I want to read is The Wood Beyond the World. Again, I just see this one a lot, and I know that it's considered kind of like a classic fantasy story. I don't know if it's a series or not, but I definitely want to read that one. The Kingkiller Chronicles is another one I have on my list. All of these might not get read, you guys. I'm just putting it out there. I'm definitely probably going to do Lord of the Rings and one I'm going to mention in a second. The Earthsea Cycle, I want to see if I can get to that one as well. Malazan or Malazan, I don't know how to correctly say it, Malazan or Malazan. I definitely want to probably get to this one as well. This is my other one I'm quite interested in, that I'm kind of like, that might be one for me. Moving on from there, I also want to get into some Brandon Sanderson, but I'll mention him in another category later on. As far as the fantasy classics I want to get to, I definitely want to get to I'm not fantasy, sci-fi classics I want to get to, excuse me. I definitely want to see Hyperion. I don't know if that'll be like my jam or not, but I've seen it mentioned a lot, so I want to see if it'll work for me. And I've heard that it's a classic. Another one is Logan's Run. I know that it's a movie also, so that'll fit definitely into my channel. I could do the book and watch the movie. And also The Handmaid's Tale, which is a dystopian novel, so definitely fits in the sci-fi category. And I know that one's considered like a classic. And I've also seen the TV series, so I want to try the book as well. So those are kind of my sci-fi mentions. I know there's a lot more sci-fi that I could probably get into, but for now I'm taking it easy with sci-fi because, like I said, I've read quite a few sci-fi books this year. Not like a lot, but yeah. So I'm definitely want to get into some more of them and maybe set the basics as well. Do some classics and see if I enjoy it. Like, I've read things like Animal Farm, 1984. I think those are considered sci-fi because they're like dystopian. Fahrenheit 451. These are some of my favorite. Ender's Game. So yeah, I want to read some more sci-fi as well. The horror classics, I guess I consider this like 1.5 goal here. Still into goal 1, but like 1.5 because I'm kind of separating sci-fi, fantasy, and then horror. Some of the horror classics I want to read are Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, Psycho, Something Wicked This Way Comes, and I Am Legend. So those are some of the horror classics I want to read. Yeah. And then goal 2, I want to finish some series that I've not finished. Namely, the Dark Tower series. I'm trying to read book 5 this month, this December 2021. Trying to read book 5 this month. I don't know if I'll get to it because I'm in the middle of Dune right now. It's only December, like, what is today? The 10th, 11th, 12th? December something. I don't even know what day it is. I think it's December like 10th or 11th when I'm filming this. So I'm in the middle of Dune. I'm finishing that up. That's a huge one. In the middle of it still has like 300 pages left. 300 something pages left. But I'm hoping to finish the 5th book of the Dark Tower series, but next year definitely I'm going to finish that one. I've been reading it since 2019 maybe, so I definitely need to finish that one. I think I read maybe one of them in 2020. I don't even know if that's true, but I'm on book 5. I want to read book 5 this month. We'll see. And I'm definitely going to finish that series next year. And the other one I want to finish is Age of Madness. I don't even know if the series is all the way done, but I read book 1, loved it, by Joe Abercrombie. I want to read book 2 as well. So I have book 2 actually. I bought it from Barnes & Noble's a few months ago. And I think there's a book 3, so I want to finish that series as well. And I was going to also, I didn't even write it down. I was going to put Game of Thrones on here as well. I read the first book, ages ago. Like, so long ago, I didn't even remember that I had read it. So I don't even know if I should put that on here, because I don't even think that could be considered finishing. I probably had to restart the whole series, because I don't even remember what happened in that first book. But I read the first book. I have all the books on my shelf. So I would like to go back and read the whole series. So maybe 2022. All right, so for my third go, I want to read these authors for the first time. I have a list of 6 here, and so here they are. Brandon Sanderson. I said I was going to mention him again. I want to read some Brandon Sanderson this year. Next year, I know a lot of people really enjoy him. Never read anything by him, and I also have seen I've seen a lot of love for his books, majority, but I've also seen some mixed things about him as well, so I want to try him out for myself. I have 2 of his books already that I've purchased, but I just haven't read. I have Mistborn and The Way of Kings. The Way of Kings is huge, so I might start with Mistborn. I don't know, but I'm definitely going to be reading at least one Brandon Sanderson book next year. I also want to read an N.K. Jemisin book, another sci-fi I can read, or sci-fi or fantasy. I want to read one book by Robert Jordan. I know he does the Wheel of Time books, right? I think. And I just keep hearing all about Wheel of Time, and I don't know if I want to do that to myself, though, because there's 14 books. But anyways, Dan Simmons is another one I want to read next year. I hear his name a lot. I've never read anything by him, at least I don't think so. Robin Hobb is another one I want to read next year. I just feel like those books might be up my alley. And then Terry Goodkind is my last one here that I want to read something from next year. So those are my picks. I think Dan Summers does horror, so that's why I have him on here. I want to do definitely a lot of horror next year. Goal number 4 is to read more from these authors, meaning I've read one of their books, and I want to read more. So my picks are Joe Abercrombie, which I've already mentioned, his Age of Madness series I want to finish, and I also want to read more from him, because I really enjoyed that first book that I read from him. Joe Hill is another one. I just finished Nosferatu in November, and I loved that book. It was so good. So I definitely want to read more from Joe Hill. I really enjoyed his writing style and his characters and his story, all of it. Christina Henry is another one. I just finished her book, what is it called? Near the Bone. And actually, that's one of the books I finished in December, so you'll see it in my December end of the year wrap up. Such a good book. Spoiler, such a good book. So I've just added her on here, literally. And then Octavia E. Butler. I've read 2 of her books so far, and that was Parable of the Sower and oh god, what was the other one? Oh my goodness, I've completely blanked on the title, but it was a strange one. Which her books I feel like are all going to be strange, but I have Kindred on my shelf. I need to read that one. I've heard it's really good, and yes, I want to read more. Goal 5 is I want to reread some books. So I want to read his Dark Material series, which is the Golden Compass. Those books, I've read them as a kid. I want to reread them as an adult, and I also want to reread Stephen King's Insomnia. I read this one in high school, and I remember really enjoying it, but the finer points have been forgotten by me, and that's all I have so far. But I definitely am thinking about some other things I want to reread next year that I haven't read in a while. and I'll go through this phase where I'll reread some of my favorite series. I've reread the Chronicles of Narnia series several times. I've reread some of the Harry Potter books, not all of them, but I've reread a few of them. I've reread one of my favorite romance novels. It's called, that's terrible, I should know what it's called when it's one of my favorites, but it's on my shelf right there. I can see it from here. It's a good one. And a couple other books from childhood as well, but I want to reread maybe some things that I haven't read in a long time, and also some classics that I've read but want to maybe refresh myself on. I'm thinking Dracula, because I've read that one, and either that or Frankenstein, but I don't know about that. For sure, I want to reread His Dark Materials and Insomnia. Goal 6 is kind of a vague one. I haven't really decided on this one yet, but I do want to do some other type of book bingo or book list challenge for next year. I did both of those this year, and I probably will do both next year as well. I created the book bingo myself, and then the list challenge I just found one from offline, and then I had a third book bingo that I just printed off just to give me some options, and all three of them were really fun to try to find books for. Again, I'll update those in another video, but I definitely want to do that again next year. Maybe give me some more broad categories as well, but also some ones that I can be strict with, because I need to force myself to read some categories, like sometimes nonfiction, which you don't have to force yourself to write, but I do want to read at least a few nonfiction books a year. So I definitely will do some sort of reading challenge for myself. And then point 7 kind of goes along with that. I want to have my number of book goals for Goodreads, or just a number of book goals set. I put 50 here, but I might do 45, I don't know. But yeah, which I mentioned that at the beginning of the video. So those are my 7 goals points for my reading goals for next year. What do you guys think? Do you have any goals for reading next year? What do you think about the goals that I've set? And would you recommend any book series, any good sci-fi, fantasy, or horror? Let me know in the comment section down below any books or authors that I should check out for next year. I will be very excited to hear your suggestions, because I'm always looking for really good books to read. So yeah, that'll be it for this video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this, and I will check you guys out in the next video very, very soon. Stay safe. Adios.